Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates. They should put the BMF belt up for grabs for this fight, because this is a certified banger. And I think stylistically, it's one of the best fights the UFC possibly could have put together. And this is a true fight night headliner. And this is a big fight for the welterweight division, because JDM, coming off of a fight where really wasn't even a fight, he just got absolutely dominated and controlled by Islam Makhachev for 25 minutes. And Carlos Prates has been knocking everybody out outside of losing a decision to Ian Gary, to where he had him in a ton of trouble in the 5th round. And Prates has a ton of momentum right now, right? The UFC's been putting him on these big cards, violently knocking out Jeff Neal, violently knocking out Leon Edwards, being the only person to ever KO Leon. And Carlos, to me, is one of the scariest strikers in all of the UFC. He's got the touch of death. And his frame reminds me a lot of Alex Pineda. Very much a welterweight-like Poatan. He's got that small, slender man frame, whipping and torquing into these shots where he just generates insane power. And he's got nasty technique. He's got some of the best Muay Thai in the UFC. And then he's going in there with what I think is one of the best boxers in the sport in JDM. And just because Jack went out there and got dominated by Islam Makhachev in the grappling does not mean that JDM all of a sudden is not some good fighter. Because when it comes to the striking, I think that JDM is one of the best overall strikers as well in the UFC. So we got two of the best strikers in the sport getting locked in the octagon together. Sign me up. Sign me up. And I think that this fight is very, very interesting. And I do not have an official prediction yet. I've been doing my research, getting ready to do my full card breakdown and prediction video for this event. And I'm fascinated by it, because we've seen from JDM, while he doesn't have that one-hitter quitter starching death touch power like a Prates has, he's got a very unique skill set to where when he is able to set up the right shots, he has enough power to be able to get you out of there and to be able to hurt you. And what I think we're going to see in this fight is Prates wanting to stick and move and play the game very long from the outside. And we are going to see JDM looking to move forward, get into the phone booth, and turn this into a boxing match. Now, that's not to say that Prates can't box with JDM, even though I think JDM has a technical overall advantage when it comes to the boxing, and I think that that's very clear. That doesn't mean that Prates doesn't have good hands. He can slip and rip really well. He holds his hands low, kind of moving around, keeping his hands low, looking to rip and torque into these nasty shots. And we've seen that left hand as a shotgun. It is a heat-seeking missile to where if it hits the target, you're going out. And the interesting factor coming into this fight is JDM's never been knocked out. At least when he did, or whatever, it was way earlier on in his career, to where now he's not even the same fighter he was years ago. And when it comes to a striking battle, we've seen Jack Della is very, very durable, very technically sound. Everything comes from where it's supposed to. Got that good tight high guard, will switch stances, fights behind the jab, dips his levels, will move forward, throws some front kicks, mix some leg kicks in there, kicks to the body. But a lot of it is him being that switch hitter to where he's very, very disciplined. Hands are always up. Technique is tight, comfortable. Everything comes from where it's supposed to. But Prates is going to have that 5-inch reach advantage. And we've seen with Carlos Prates' game that if JDM's going to be switching stances to where he's going southpaw, that is going to allow Prates to rip that calf kick, which he throws very well, to damage and hurt the lead leg of JDM. And we saw Islam doing a very good job of that on the feet in those small doses that we had, the small sample sizes of JDM and Islam striking, was Islam would kind of show him the hands with the boxing, attack the calf, JDM would step in, boom, would level change and take him down. I don't think we're going to see much grappling in this fight. But if we do, I think it would be wise for Jack to mix in some takedowns, because what we saw in the fight from Ian Gary against Carlos Prates. Now, obviously, Ian Gary, very different stylistic matchup, tall, rangy, tons of lateral movement, fights very well moving forward, fights very well on the back foot, and he's a very heavy-oriented fighter to where there's all this movement going on, and he's like a cat. He's just so fast in there. But something that Ian Gary was doing a really good job of up until he started to get caught in round number 5. He was not only sticking and moving against Prates and timing him on the way in as Carlos would move forward with his hands down, getting overly aggressive, trying to close that gap, but he would mix in some timely takedowns. Not because Gary was looking to have a ton of success, which I'm sure if he could have had the success, he would have loved that instead of trying to slug it out on the feet with Carlos. But we saw him disrupt the timing and that forward momentum that Carlos was bringing to the table. And if there are those moments where Prates is the one moving forward, he's the one pushing JDM back along the octagon side to where Prates can walk him into a big shot, or JDM's on the back foot and Prates is tagging that lead leg. And we've seen that even though JDM can fight very well out of the southpaw stance, against the opponents that Prates has been fighting, a lot of them have been southpaws, and that straight left hand comes right down the middle, and guys just get clipped with it, and they go out. They go out. That knee to the body as well against the southpaw. Prates steps in, boom, nasty knee to the body. And the difference to me is I think JDM's the better boxer here, to where if he could get to the inside, he can fight behind that jab, dip his levels, set up shots, and extend those combinations safely to throw in combinations to get to the taller, longer Prates and back him up and put him on the back foot to make him feel a little bit uncomfortable, to get those hands dropping to where Prates just tries to kind of roll behind his shoulders. That is going to be those windows of opportunity to where JDM could definitely catch Carlos and drop him and possibly get him out of there. And we've seen, like in the Randy Brown fight, where JDM can hurt you on the feet, sting you, drop you, and then get to you and eventually submit you on the ground. Now, obviously, Randy Brown, a guy that's known for not being that durable. We've seen, guys be able to out-grapple him. So again, it's just things that we've seen throughout their career. But I think that this is a fascinating matchup because I could see JDM in the mid to later rounds setting up the boxing. Prates starts to, the hands are dropping really low, and that's part of his style, right? Having the hands low, shots are coming from odd angles. He's ripping and torquing into these, into his shots, which is very dangerous, but it also leaves him very vulnerable defensively. And we've seen his boxing defense. If there's ever a big weakness in Carlos's game, I would say it's his boxing defense. And we've seen that Prates, even if guys can take him down, even though he hasn't been in there with like a crazy good grappler yet, his grappling looks pretty good. He scrambles back to his feet. He understands how to get up safely. So I think we're looking at a kickboxing fight here. And if anyone's going to try to grapple, I would imagine it would be JDM moving forward, keeping his hands up, dipping his levels. Going to have to be very careful of that because of the knee up the middle from Carlos Prates. But if JDM's able to turn this into a boxing match, I think there's a chance he could stop Prates in the mid to later rounds, but I would lean more towards JDM outscoring him and winning by a decision. And then if Carlos wins, which is where I think my head is kind of at right now, is Prates getting this done. Again, not an official prediction. It just comes down to the sole fact that Carlos is the most dangerous guy at welterweight. He just is. He's one of the most dangerous strikers in the sport, man. And when you have that extensive Muay Thai background, to put Ian Gary in that kind of trouble when it comes to the striking and be very close to getting him out of there. And outside of that fight to where, he was getting outstruck by Gary. Again, styles make fights. JDM is not nearly as fast or as elusive as Ian Gary. And as JDM's going to be trying to move forward and, his head's going to be dipping and he's going to be playing that boxing game, that's where Prates can kind of probe with the lead hand and snipe with the left hand. Try to set him up to throw that knee up the middle and land something upstairs on JDM and possibly catch him. Or target the midsection like we saw in that Charles Radke fight. This is an amazing fight. Striker's delight kind of matchup. And I think if we see a KO, it would be Carlos Prates early on in this fight finding that shot, because it feels like it's one of those fights to me where JDM has to be perfect for 25 minutes, while Carlos Prates, all it takes is one shot. And I know JDM is a guy who's got his chin tucked. He can take a punch. We've seen him eat some big shots. You look at the Gilbert Burns fight where Gilbert's stepping in, landing some big elbows, landing some powerful right hands. JDM doesn't have to worry about the grappling in this fight. And neither really does Prates. So if the grappling cancels out and we're stuck on the feet, we got the Muay Thai and the ferocious power of Prates versus the very technical switch-hitting boxing skills of JDM. This is a fascinating matchup to me. I think it really comes down to, can JDM get into the pocket, get his boxing and his combos going? And if he's able to do that and Prates is not able to knock him out or catch him and make him pay for getting into that range, I think JDM can outscore Carlos Prates and get the job done. But there's always that it factor with Carlos. The force, the power, the heat-seeking missiles that this dude throws. If he lands clean, he will put anybody out in this weight class. So my early lean, I'm favoring Carlos Prates to find a shot somewhere in rounds 2 and 3 as this fight starts to play out. He starts to build his read, starts to roll on some shots, and that's where he's going to be able to catch JDM with a big left hand, maybe a knee up the middle, and be able to put him away. And if Carlos Prates can stop JDM, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to get the next title shot, without question, because he's one of the biggest stars in this weight class, one of the most exciting fighters, period, in the UFC. But we have also seen from JDM, just because he lost to Islam Makhachev does not mean that this guy is still not one of the best in this weight class. The way that he was able to beat up Bilal Muhammad on the feet, stuff the takedowns, was down against Gilbert Burns, injured his arm, was able to catch him with a knee and get him out of there. Both of these guys are dogs. They're absolute savages. This, up until this card, throughout the year so far, is by far my most looked forward to fight. Banger matchup. Shout out to the UFC for putting it on. I think we are in for a Striker's Delight BMF style fight. And I think it's if Prates can catch him, we'll put him away. But if he is not able to find that shot, I think JDM could potentially put on a boxing clinic and outscore Prates and get this one done. I'm going to have nerves and goosebumps for this main event. This is a big one, man. I love this fight.